my life, what was that English-only movement, because it was the first time that it occurred to me that you could join together, fight back, and then empower an entire community. And so yes, we had a very difficult and polarizing situation in my city, Monterey Park. It was the beginning of a whole change in the San Gabriel Valley when many Asian Americans were moving in, but those longtime residents had a problem with it. And in fact, there were some very ugly things that happened at the time. For instance, a gas station put up a sign that said, "Well, the last American to leave Monterey Park, please bring the flag." And the head of the office of the newspaper, the Monterey Park Progress, was burned down, and a letter was sent in, purportedly by the Ku Klux Klan, saying that all these people better leave town. So it was a very ugly situation, and that resulted in these English-only kinds of measures that we fought. But what really encouraged me was seeing that people can come together. People of all different backgrounds came together to fight back, and that's how I ended up running for office. It is also why I take up the issues of diversity so much, and it's why I look at the issues of language access and work a lot on that. It's why making sure that immigrants have equal rights. It's why that issue is so important to me. And in fact, I spent my subsequent 13 years on the city council working to bridge the gap between the different groups in the community. And in fact, 7 years later, we actually got the grand prize for innovation in addressing diversity by the League of California Cities. And I tell you, for me, after working so hard to bring our community from where it was to the point that it was when we got that award, I just felt so proud.
And Congressman Hanabusa, I guess a more personal question, if there is one personal accomplishment that stands out for you, whether it be professional or personal, that you'd like to share?
You know, before I get there, what I'd like to say is really give all of you, those of you who are from what we call the mainland when we're growing up, an apology. And you know, the Teal Tapiava was my office. She's from Hawaii, and Ashley Nagaoka is also with my office, and they're both from Hawaii. The one discussion that we have is that a lot of our experiences in Hawaii are very different. And the reason is because we are a state of minorities. And in fact, until very recently, the Japanese American component was the largest of the Asian minority group. We have now been surpassed by Filipino Americans. But you know, because of Hawaii's diversity, we have and it doesn't mean that we haven't had our challenges like white-only clubs, I still remember that, or men's-only clubs, and we've had all of those challenges. But because of that, a lot of how we view, and like when listening to Judy's stories, you know, we don't have those kinds of challenges as you do here. It doesn't mean we're not empathetic to it. It just means that it's not part of something that we have kind of grown up with. Especially when you get to Teal's and Ashley's age, a lot of the whites-only clubs are gone already before probably they were born. But you know, we remember that. The one personal accomplishment it was that affected me the most was about 2 years ago. Maybe about 2 years ago. I received an award from the American Bar Association because the Senate President, and as a state senator, you can also practice laws. It's not a full-time job like this. The American Bar Association gave me an award for, it's called their Spirit of Excellence Award. It was for someone who promoted ethnic and racial diversity. And I had no idea why I received that award. I received it with people like Professor Charles Ogletree of Harvard. And I thought that I was totally out of place. And the reason why they gave me that award, I found out later, was because they thought that it was a big deal that I was the Asian woman who was heading the Senate of the Hawaii State Legislature, and the only the Asian woman to do it in the United States. And they felt that that was something that promoted the whole concept of ethnic and racial diversity, and the fact that I was a lawyer. The reason why that meant something to me after I realized what it was, and I got up there and I told everyone, I'm really sorry, I have no idea why you would give me this award. It's because of the fact that I thought, well, just by doing something that I never thought of it, because I have the benefit and the luxury of growing up in Hawaii, that I was doing it because I was Asian or because I was a woman. It was just because, you know, I didn't like the guys running the Senate and I wanted to run it myself. I mean, it's as simple as that. And all I needed to do, I learned very early on, was count to 13, and when I got to 13, I got my presidency. You know, I mean, it then put me into a perspective that it's not just about what I want to do or what I think, that steps that we take do have impact. And by doing that, there may be somebody out there who would think, hey, you know, I can do it. She can do it, and I don't think much of her, and me, and she can do it, I can do it. And that's really what I think is the greatest value. And, you know, I'm proud to tell everyone, I have a very young staff. I have a very, my staff, we laugh about it as to how ethnically diverse we are. Even guys who we think are just, you know, white guys are, you know, 1/4 Cherokee, or so it's a wonderful melding, and I think that that's really, to me, it's that impact that I don't know or didn't think much about that really is the greatest accomplishment.
In this position, though, as a minority, what are some of the biggest challenges you say that you point out?
You mean in the Congress, which is completely different from being president of the Senate.
Right.
You know, I think the way we approach things and how we look at things differ as to how our experiences are. I sit on armed services, which people may wonder, oh, you're some kind of military hawk or something like that. But armed services is very critical for the state of Hawaii. It is the stabilizing influence in terms of our economy. Why Hawaii survives better than most places is because we have a strong military presence. We have the 4 of the services all represented in Hawaii. So being on HASC is actually one of the most positive things that I can do for my constituency and the state of Hawaii. In addition to that, I sit on natural resources, which you may think, oh, you know, land, water. That's true. It's also Indian Affairs and Native Alaskans, which has a major impact for my former major constituent base, which is the Native Hawaiians and the Waianae Coast. But what those issues always brings for me is to put up front, what are Native rights? What are Indigenous people rights? And how does that meld with even, for example, the EPA or Fish and Wildlife? What are, in Hawaii we talk about gathering rights. What are the native gathering rights and how does that then impact other laws? And these are the types of things that has made actually my year, and maybe it's because I don't know any better. I'm not Judy and Maisie who are part of the majority. I came in part of the minority and you know, just decided that I'm going to make the best of it. And you know, I've made the relationships and the connections that I feel that were necessary, keeping in mind always that there's only 2 of us from Hawaii, Maisie and myself, and we have to do everything we can for our state. Of course, we also have a major advantage, and that is that we have Senator Daniel K. Inouye, President Pro Tem of the Senate and Chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, and Senator Akaka, who I don't care what anyone says, I mean everyone in the Senate calls Senator Akaka. And he would have been, by the way, had he stayed in the House, probably Appropriations Chair right at the moment that he left, because at the 16th year in the House, he moved to the Senate, and at that point he was the ranking member of the Appropriations Committee in the House. So we have 2 great people that we can look up to. And you follow in there and what they've done, the one thing I think that we learn from them is that you'll be in the majority part of the time, you'll be in the minority part of the time, but it's the relationships that you build that are critical. That's what it is. Senator Inouye's relationship with former Ted Stevens was legendary.